They see arms and shoulders. They see a back that can work. They grab you off the street, they send you down here and make you work for no pay. You a slave, Will. It don't matter what they tell you. Oh, they find a way to lock you up. You spit on the sidewalk, they lock you up. Look too long at a white woman, they lock you up. You do your job too slow or too fast, and what happens? He got a back on him. He got arms on him, they say. Lock him up.
In 1844, I married John Tubman, and I took on my mother's name. With the fear of being sold to another plantation owner, I became a runaway slave. That was in 1849. I can remember. It was a friendly Quaker woman that helped me escape and find my way here to Pennsylvania. You see, freedom is a right. My journey as the most well-known Underground Railroad conductor had just begun. It was the very next year I returned to Maryland. Oh yes, and I helped escort my sister and other family members to freedom. I was determined to fight this disease called slavery.
24 our lives. Moon shining through the trees like death. Feet sinking again and again in the mud and the slime. Dogs howling and barking, tearing at their bonds, yearning for flesh. Gunshots rang out. Donna, tumbling to the ground. Blood and breath leaving her body fast. Taking my son from her bosom. I can hear her in my mind. Run, Trixie, I love you. Run! You got to give our boy a chance. You got to give him a chance to be a free man. Run! Don't let our boy grow up to be no slave.
Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging dart of segregation to say wait. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your brothers and sisters, when you have seen the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of a affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter she can't go to the amusement park that was just on television, and see tears welling up in her eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to colored children. And see ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to distort her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people. When you have to concoct an answer for your 5-year-old son who is asking, Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean? When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable quarters of your automobile because no motel will have you. When you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs that read colored and white. When your first name becomes nigger, your middle name becomes boy, no no matter how old you are, and your last name becomes John, and your wife and your mother are never given the respected title of Mrs. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. I hope, sirs, you can understand our legitimate and unavoidable impatience.
But the true doctrine of American liberty, plainly, is that each class and each individual within a class should be allowed to represent themselves. The right of the woman to vote is sacred in my judgment. And if ever called upon to give my assent in any official capacity, I shall raise both my hands in favor. And this is a right that should be given as quickly as possible. Slavery of one kind is ended, but another continues so long as women are refused the right to vote. They too are enslaved. Therefore, I urge you to petition your congressmen and representatives about this important subject. For the sooner women are allowed to vote, the sooner America will truly be the land of the free. But are we free, I wonder? Will we ever be truly free? Or is freedom an abstraction that can never be made into a practical reality? I sometimes think I know, but often I am baffled. Yet of this I am sure, freedom, whether an abstraction or fact, is something worth fighting for.
And it would have been considered impudent for any of the passengers to have spoken to her. And the crew were not allowed to have conversation with either one of them. And so it was not until we reached St. Louis and the slaves were being removed for a boat bound for New Orleans that I managed to intercept this beautiful creature. And she whispered in my ear 5 words only. God made this world hard. And in that instant, I became an abolitionist. I dedicated myself from that moment to the end of my days to the opposition of slavery in all its many abominable forms.
When Harriet met John Tubman, he was the most beautiful man. Something about his hands, his feet, a back unscarred by slavery. Well, she dreamt they'd settle somewhere. Their lives were firmly entwined. But slavery infiltrated every aspect of their lives. Sometimes it disguised itself, but other times it stood in an obstruction to every effort. And Harriet tried to explain how Earth was an invitation, how if she never saw the Earth touch the trees, the sun would dry out of her eyes and she would die. But John saw himself as a bird without wings. Aren't I enough, he'd ask. And even though she left him in the dry dust of a summer day, she felt abandoned.